everyone, Brandy Yvette here with Just Swallow the Pill. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. We are back from our little break. I appreciate you guys for joining me this week. So just in case you forgot, because I know we were gone for 2 weeks, just to do a brief recap of what happened last week, 2 weeks ago, I told you guys about how I tried to date after separating from my ex-husband, and it just did not end very well for myself. I still had open wounds, so those individuals walking out of my life really, dug a little deep into those already open wounds. And I actually found out that those individuals decided that I was not ready to be in a relationship with them because I kept talking about my ex-husband. He was the subject of all of my conversations. And so if it didn't start with him and me talking about my trauma, it ended with me and talking about my trauma. So with that said, those individuals decided that they were just gonna walk away, and I honestly don't blame them at all, one bit. Now, I actually had a whole show planned for us this week. I actually had some questions that I was gonna answer, and then I was gonna talk about moving on and what that looks like. But sadly, we just lost an amazing human being on Sunday afternoon to some random violence, some senseless violence that happened in LA. And of course, there are some conspiracies, whether it was actually gang related or if it had something to do with the documentary that he was working on that spoke about healing and how cancer and AIDS were healed by diet from Dr. Sebi. I think that's what his name was, or Sebi, yes. So with that said, I decided to talk about mourning. And I decided to talk about mourning today because my heart goes out to the woman that he left behind, which we all know her, the actress Laura London, and they were in a 5-year relationship. And from what I can see, they were very much so in love, and they had a, I believe, 3-year-old son together that we have yet to even see. I don't think she has exposed him to the media yet, but that's neither here nor there. But with that said, I wanted to kind of talk about that this week because the loss of a spouse and divorce actually are very similar. Experts say that the number one cause for the most human stress is the loss of a spouse. Right up underneath that, coming in number 2, is divorce. A lot of experts compare divorce and death of a spouse because they are both deaths. And I believe as a community, if we actually looked at divorce and or breakups from a long-term spouse that way, I believe we actually would be a lot more supportive for each other, and we would have a little bit more compassion. I know I shared with you a lot of people in the beginning was just telling me, "Oh, Brandy, just move on, just move on, just move on." And I doubt that I would have gotten those same reactions if my ex-husband had actually died. No one would have rushed me to move on. No one would have said, "Oh, Brandy, just move on." No one would have said that at all. And so I believe that if we look at a lot of the similarities between the two, we can actually find that they are quite the same. Now, of course, with divorce, your spouse does not actually die, obviously, but you are experiencing a death from your whole life. Your whole life as you know it has died. Dreams, hopes, plans, things that you saw with this person no longer exist. Now, it's not to say that you can't have those things with other people, not to say that at all, but at this very moment, you're not thinking about what I could have with another person. You're thinking about all the things that I had planned with this person, and this will never happen. Well, when my ex-husband and I divorced, I lost family, I lost friends, I lost money, I lost status, I lost myself. I didn't just lose a spouse. I lost a lot of other things as well. And so what I want to talk about with you guys today is mourning and the 7 stages of mourning that we go through. Now, there used to be 5, but they've added 2 more in here, and I kind of want to go over them with you. Now, just briefly, really quickly going over them. Shock, disbelief, we know about that. Denial, guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, loneliness, and reflection, that's new. Reconstruction and work through, that's also a new one. And then last but not least, we have acceptance. Okay, now again, these are interchangeable. So what that means is you can be in the acceptance stage and still feel depressed and lonely. You can be in the acceptance stage and still feel some sort of shock that this has still even happened. Okay. Now I can say for myself, you know, I have been very vocal with you guys about what actually happened in my divorce and the trauma that I went through. But I never really went over the stages with you guys, and so I'm gonna do that with you guys today. Now, I've been very vocal with you guys about shock, disbelief, and denial. We did a whole 2-part episode on those on those stages. The shock, again, it doesn't go away. Shock is actually built in to help you not feel the pain. Shock is built in to help kind of protect you from the pain that you're about to experience. It softens that blow. Okay? And shock takes a while to wear off. I know my shock didn't wear off. I think it was like a year and a half when it actually did wear off. So it takes a minute. Denial, again, is another one that I experienced for quite some time. And again, denial doesn't necessarily mean you denied what has happened, even though I did that. I did deny that this shit was happening to me. I thought that he was just going to come back and he was going through some shit and that he was just going to come back and things would be fine. And regrettably, that just was not the case for me. It is for some women, but that just wasn't the case for me. And so, even moving forward down the line, denial felt like me also not being vocal with my feelings, denying that I was hurt, denying that I was still hurt. You know, this is a year later. You know, I'm denying that this shit is still affecting me. So shock and denial can take a minute to wear off. Guilt. Now, guilt was a very traumatic one for me, because one of the last things that my ex-husband said to me was, I know I can find a woman better than you. And he said this about 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before I had left. And so for me, I was like the most amazing wife. Like, you didn't have to cook, you didn't have to clean, you didn't even have to step foot in a grocery store. Like, the only thing I asked you to do was take out the trash and bring in the groceries. That's really the only thing I asked you to do. Like, I did everything. I was the model wife for you. And so for him to actually say to me, I know I could find a woman better than you, that hit me way deep down. And so I started to like think about all the things that I did that caused this to happen. You know, maybe when he cheated that one time, maybe if I wouldn't have said nothing. Maybe if that one time where I caught him in that lie, maybe I just should have shut the fuck up and not said shit. Maybe if that one time, you know, I caught him doing, you know, in that inappropriate conversation with that other woman, maybe I should have just not said anything. Maybe, you know, I just should have really just let him do whatever he wanted to do. You know, maybe we wouldn't be here. And so I started to feel guilty for not wanting to be abused, which is crazy. I felt guilty for not allowing him to get away with abusing me. Crazy. I was mourning. So it made sense to me at the time. It made perfect sense. And so then comes anger. Anger is something that I felt for 2 whole years. 2 whole years I was angry at him. Then I became angry at, let me start this off. First, I was angry at God. I couldn't believe God had allowed this to happen. How could you allow this to happen to me, Lord Jesus? How? And then my anger, rightfully so, moved to him. How could you treat me this way? How could you do this? How could you not want to be with me? I'm like the most amazing wife ever. How could you not? And then I became angry at myself. And I was so angry at myself for not allowing, or for allowing this man to come in my life and fuck shit up. You know, have you ever had one of those moments where you're like, God dang it, I should have left. I knew I should have left when he did this. Or I knew I should have left when she did this. But I let such and such talk me into staying, or I talked myself into staying. And so I felt a lot of that towards the end. I was angry at myself for allowing these things to happen to me. But initially, again, I was just angry at God, and I was angry at my ex-husband. And so then was bargaining. You know, Lord Jesus, you know, if you please just let this work this one time, I promise, you know, I won't do this again. You know, I'll let him get away with doing whatever he wants to do, Lord. Just please, I'll let him You know, I'll let him do whatever he wants to do. Just please bring him back. Yep. That was how I bargained. That's what I wanted. Now, depression, loneliness, and reflection also set in. And again, a lot of times these things set in minute by minute, and sometimes hour by hour and day by day. So one day you can be angry, and the next day you are depressed, and it can even move by minute. 1 minute you are accepting, I accept that this has happened, and then the next minute you back to bargaining again. And so the depression for me, again, was one thing that lasted quite some time. I didn't want to shower. I used to have to peel myself out of bed in the morning, and I almost didn't get to sleep until probably 2 to 3 hours before I was even supposed to get up. I also lost an extreme amount of weight in a very short amount of time, as I was living off of cherry, Coke, and water. I didn't eat. And of course, you know, being lonely, you know, I was the only one going through what I was going through. I was the only one in my situation. And so, with that said, I felt all by myself. And reflecting went hand in hand with the guilt, because I was consistently reflecting on my past, consistently thinking about how I could have did things different and what I could have done different. And then of course that goes into bargaining, because you're like, okay, I won't do this again if you just bring him back to me. So these things really happen interchangeably, and they sometimes happen simultaneously. Got it. Now, reconstruction and work through, of course, that is after you've been going through this for quite some time. For me, I knew I had to get my shit together because I had to get out. Once I accepted what was happening, and I got my message from God that I needed to move the hell on, I started to reconstruct and work through with what I had, so I could build a plan so I could get the hell on. And that is exactly what I did. And last but not least is, again, acceptance. That is, of course, obviously accepting what has happened, and what this channel is all about, swallowing your pill. Now, during this process, there are definitely different difficult pills you have to swallow. So this isn't the first and the last pill you have to swallow. You have to swallow many pills, not only about yourself, but the situation. Okay. Now, one thing that I learned from going through these stages of grief and mourning was that all of these things were dying around me. Everything was dying around me. Okay. Yet in the distance, I see this man living his best life. And of course, that did something to me as well, because here I am experiencing all of this loss. And I'm devastated. I didn't even know that this level of devastation even existed. Yet, here I am going through it, walking through this. And it really made me feel like something was wrong with me. And what I didn't understand was that I really was holding on to the death. I was holding on to the mourning. And as crazy as it sounds, for me, with this experience, at times the morning felt good. You know, some of us get to that point where we want to be sad. Like, you don't want to be happy. And I didn't feel like being happy. I didn't feel like it. I didn't want it. Keep that shit away. I wanted to be sad. I wanted to sit in my shit. And I wanted to mourn. And if you know someone that is going through a death or a breakup from a spouse that they were with long term, or a divorce, and they seem like they're always sad, it's because they want to be sad. They want it. And it's okay, because it's part of the process. And you have to trust the process. You can't rush it. If you rush this right here, if you rush it, it's going to come back. It's going to come back in full circle, and it's going to bite you in the ass. And you're going to have to deal with it one way or another. But it's easier if you handle it in the beginning versus trying to deal with it in the end. Now, what I also learned is, which it's very difficult to see at the time, especially when you're mourning, that yes, you've experienced a death. Your spouse has died. Your marriage has died. Your relationship has died. You've lost all of your dreams. You've lost all of your hopes. You've lost everything. But what you don't realize is at the same time, you're rebirthing. And I think that's the part that actually hurts. I mean, just think about when a mother gives birth. That is a very traumatic experience for a woman's body and for her child. It's a very dangerous, life-threatening experience that could result in death. But so many women do it every day. And that's because you know that you are about to produce this beautiful life. And if we look at our mourning that way, I believe we will be more likely to get through it more smoothly. If you understand, I'm experiencing something traumatic and I'm rebirthing myself, and this shit fucking hurts, man. But I know that I'm bringing forth new life, so I have to do it. Then I believe all of us will have a different outcome. All of us would be more likely to just do it. And regardless of the pain that we've experienced, we would just do it hands down. But again, not everybody looks at it that way. Now, I will also say this. When you have rebirth, okay, you're in your infancy. You have emerged this new person. And so you don't know who you are yet. You're figuring you out all over again. You have rebirthed. And so how do infants learn? Through repetition and through consistency. And with love and patience. And it's the same for yourself. You have to really be consistent with yourself, and you have to give yourself the most patience that you've ever given to anyone in your life. And the same goes for love. And you have to be repetitious. You know, you have to retrain your thoughts again. You got to repeat the same things over again. to yourself. Again, because you're relearning yourself. You got to try new things. Some shit won't work out and some shit will, but you won't know because you haven't tried. Okay? And so those are the things that I learned from mourning. Those are the things that I feel like I want you guys to practice. And again, if you yourself aren't going through this, I know you know someone who is. I know you do. And so, again, my heart goes out to the beautiful Laura London. I can't even begin to imagine the pain that she's going through right now. But I do know the hurt that she is going through, and I do know the work that she has ahead of her is beyond. She has a lot of work to do, and we might not see her for a while. I disappeared. I disappeared for 3 years. I disappeared. And so I won't be surprised if we won't see her for a long time. All right, love bugs. Well, that is it for today's episode. Next week, I'm going to come back with what I was supposed to talk about this week, which is moving on and what that looks like. And then I'm going to answer a question from one of our viewers. And don't forget to like, comment, and share Just Swallow the Pill. And if you have a question for me, or if you want to share your story with me, email me at thedifficultpill@gmail.com. And as always, don't forget, your crown is in your soul. It's not on your head. You'll lose it if you leave it on your head. So keep it here, right in your soul. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you guys next week. Your excuse to make